Hi everyone, I'm making this video. The target audience is USCS freshmen, and I'm making this video because coursereg is coming up in around 5 days time, and I wanted to give you guys some information before you make that decision, so you can plan for your mods better. So yeah, so I think the link to this document will be in the description below, and you can feel free to leave any comments. This link is commentable, so you can leave any comments for any further questions or resources you want. And yeah, so I think the source of truth, I'll be going through mainly this doc, but the source of truth for this doc is going to be this page, where they talk about the degree requirements, and I'll be briefly going through what to look out for, especially if you are interested in NOC or SEP, and still doing a year 3 internship. So yeah, so I think for the common requirements, there's a whole list of CS mods over here that you have to clear. There's also some math mods down here, and there's also industry experience and your specialization. And on top of that, there's also common curriculum requirements. So roughly speaking, for the core CS mods, there is the following. I'll go into detail later. Then for the common curriculum, there is 3 times IDCD mods, which is basically interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary mods. Most of them you can SU, so not to worry too much about it. There's also 6 general education pillars. For RCs, it's going to be 4 mods, plus GA plus ES 2660, I think. And most of these you can SU also. So yeah, so I think much of your planning is going to be revolving around your ATEP or NOC, basically your industry experience. Much of your planning revolves around that, because that would greatly affect your timetable, because these programs have specific intakes, and if you don't plan carefully, you could possibly clash with your, like, for example, year 3 summer internship, where you try to get written offer, and if you clash with that, then you may have to extend your graduation. So more on that later. So I think some important questions to ask yourself before you plan your mods is, do you want to go on student exchange program? Do you want to go NOC? And if you want to do either of the above, do you want to try for year 3 summer internship to get a return offer? Or because if these clash with your year 3 summer, then you'll be trying to go for full-time roles directly, or you have to extend your graduation. So some other questions to consider will be, how fast do you want to graduate, whether you want to try to score for your fluff mods, your general education mods, or whether you want to get first class honors. In that case, you probably need to do a FYP, which means that you do not need to do your ATEP or the other industry experience, because FYP can replace it. Another consideration will be what specialization you want. For some specialization, the prereq chains are probably a bit longer. So yeah, so some of the mod planning templates, if you're unsure what you really want to, how you want to fill out a timetable, some of the templates are given here. I'll be going through NOC first. So because I think a lot of people want to do NOC, so I think the important there's 2 like main paths over here. One is if you want to do a year 3 summer internship, then in that case it's good to try to do NOC starting in the year 2 sem 2 intake, so that you come back by year 3 summer, and yeah, and then you can do your year 3 summer internship. So one consideration is that there are two concerns when you try to do year 2 sem 2 NOC. One is that this might be difficult for RC people who need to stop the clock, because your RC takes up 2 years. And another consideration would be, I hear that year 2 sem 2 NOC might be a bit harder to get into, so it requires a bit, you need to be a bit better, or you need to have a lot of luck. So yeah, so that's one thing. Another consideration would be, another option would be doing doing 1 year NOC with by and also graduating later. In that case, you have the option of doing NOC almost in any of the intakes, but that will mean that you need to pay a bit of money, and there'll be your op cost lost when you extend your graduation, because you lost some income. And yeah, But if NOC is really what you like, then this might be a worthy sacrifice. So other mod planning templates will be, for example, ATAP. I think if people want to do ATAP in year 2 sem 2, then they need to do they need to do a software engineering mod in year 2 sem 1, which would also mean that they need to do 2030 and 2040 in year 1 sem 2. So yeah, so that's for industry requirements. If you want to rush your graduation, this is what it will roughly look like. Then in that case, you probably need to do Trinity. Yeah, so for if you want to do SEP, I think some people like to use SEP to map the mods, right? So for example, winter school, you can map the linear algebra, which is, some people find it a bit hard. And yet in some of the SEP schools, you can map 3230 and ST2334, which people also find difficult. But I think the only thing to consider is that in that case, you need to try to clear 2040 before you go on exchange, which you probably do anyway. Yeah, just to take note of the prereqs. And SEP cares about pre-SU GPA, so yeah, so you cannot really use up all your SUs. So one other thing will be, if you want to use up all your SUs, the 5 expiring SUs at the end of year 1, then you might want to squeeze as many SUable mods into year 1 sem 2 as possible, because you're not allowed to overload year 1 sem 1. I think the school is quite strict on this. You can only take 5 mods or 6 if you have a double degree program, but in year 1 sem 2 you can take up to 10 mods depending on your GPA, and in that case you can fit all your fluff mods, all your SUable mods in there, so you do not waste your time studying for these fluff mods outside of year 1. Yeah, so yep, so I think moving on, here are some mod specific information. I'll try to gloss over this because you can read it yourself. But 1231S is the logic mod is known to be a bit of a time tight paper. Some definitions might be new, things like induction, but the good thing is you can SU, so don't need to worry too much about it. Most of the year 1 sem 1 mods can be SU, so you cannot really mess up too hard, right? And the school designed it in such a way that you can have a buffer to adjust to school life. Then your 1521 linear, 1521 is calculus, and in calculus, if you come from a poly background where you haven't really done a lot of calculus in school, this might be a bit of a steep learning curve. And you need to do things like 2D integrals, which is also new to JC kids, so that's also a bit hard. But the good thing is you can SU again, so yeah, no worries about that. So 1522 linear algebra is quite a new subject for most people, so most people might find it a bit hard. Some people like to map it in winter school, but you can always SU it. Okay, then 11ONS, this is the intro to programming mod that is maybe notorious for being difficult. For people who have taken 10-10x, they can skip this, or some people who have done advanced placement, they can also skip this. Some people say that 11ONS is good foundation for 2030 functional programming, so some seniors might recommend that you do not skip it, so that you can learn the functional programming. Yeah, so the hard parts will be the meta circular evaluator, which is basically like an interpreter, the CSE machine, which is kind of unique to NUSCS, and tracing recursion in the exam is quite difficult because there's a lot of edge cases, so carelessness is really punishing. And yeah, but the good thing is you can SU once again, so and if you want to pre-study it, you can go to this link. Yeah, so 2030 is the next one, one of the 3 Trinity mods, right, along with 2040 and 2100. So 2030, I think the difficult part that people mostly complain about is the 2 practicals that you have to do. One of them is roughly speaking on object-oriented programming, and one of them is roughly speaking on functional programming, right? In the later part of the sem, you learn a bit of functional programming. So the difficult, I think a lot of people struggle with this because of the new editor called Vim that you're forced to use. You're not forced to SSH into their cloud server, the NUS servers, and use Vim. So I would recommend, if you are seeing this right now, I'll strongly recommend you just start learning Vim. Just get it done and over with, and once you get used to the muscle memory, it takes around 1 month of torture, but once you get used to it, you'll be set to go, right? And this is a prereq for your software engineering mod, so you'll be done in Java. And the notes are also publicly available online. So 2040, some people say if you grind leak code, you have no issue with this. While that's generally true, I think it's still important to look through the standard techniques taught in 2040, sorry. Like graph modeling. Graph modeling is something that doesn't appear so much in leak code, in my opinion. For example, duplicating a graph n times to form another graph is quite a common pattern in the exams. And leak code will help with dynamic programming and probably a bit of data structures. The things you cannot SU it. So yeah, this is a rite of passage that everyone has to go through. And some people like to take 2030 with 2040, right, in year 1 sem 2, because it's a prereq for software engineering in year 2 sem 1. And that if you do software engineering year 2 sem 1, that opens up your the possibility to do ATAP in year 2 sem 2, yeah, which is one of your industry requirements. And also 2040 is a prereq for 3230, which some people like to map overseas. So yeah, the last of the Trinity mods will be 2100. It's a prereq for operating systems. Operating system is a good mod for studying for your technical interviews for big tech. The exams were punishing for carelessness, and the first half was like C programming, second half was circuits, which is basically, you've done Minecraft Redstone before, that's quite similar. Yeah, you cannot SU it also, and usually it's taken in year 2 sem 1 unless you really want to rush your graduation and do all three of the Trinity mods in year 1 sem 2. Yeah, so 2106, I won't say too much because I haven't taken it, but the concepts taught here will be quite useful for big technical interviews. Technical interviews usually involve your basic 2106 plus a bit more extra knowledge, like listed here, and this will give you a good foundation for studying more kernel stuff. 2105, even though it's technically not a core requirement, you'll probably end up taking it anyway because it's one of the mods that if you need to clear all your MCs, you probably need to take it to clear your MCs. It follows this textbook by Jim Cruz, and it complements 2106 for kernel networking, so it's useful to take if you are interested in studying for big technical interviews. ST2334 is a stats mod. I heard the bell curve is quite steep, and if you're careless, you can drop a grade, and you cannot SU it. So some people like to map it overseas when they go when they go SEP, and some of the mappable mods are listed here, but I'll recommend you check edurec for the specific uni, because the exact mappable mods depends on the uni also. And some of the unis have their like prereq chains also, so do take note of it too. So some specialization specific advice, I won't talk too much about it. Just note that the popular ones are AI, databases, parallel computing, and if you don't really know what you want to do, there's always software engineering as an option. Okay, so NOC deserves a whole video on its own. I won't really talk too much about it in this video. Let me know if there's enough interest. Let me know in the comments that you want another video on it. I'll leave you to read what my friend wrote. I didn't write this myself, so I don't think I should talk too much about it in this video. But I think the only thing I'll say is that you should do your research about the NOC period of time, right? Especially if you want to do 1 year, there's a chance that it might clash with your year 3 summer internship where you're trying to get a return offer. And because of this, a lot of people who do NOC, some people end up needing to extend their graduation, and yeah, and of course there'll be a op cost to that. And yeah, so if you want to do NOC with the 1 year NOC, and still have a year 3 summer internship, you can try to go for the year 2 sem 2 NOC, but I hear that it's a bit difficult to get, like you need to be good and lucky. Yeah, so just take note of the NOC period, and the interview process is also kind of listed up here, so just feel free to read through it. For student exchange program, I wouldn't say too much about it also. You can feel free to read this yourself, but do take note of the exchange period, especially if you're doing 1 year, because year 3 summer return offer internship, it could clash, and that will affect your graduation date. Yeah, so also take note that SEP cares about pre-SU GPA, so if you want to go to a good SCP uni, and you have to have a choice, then not SUing too much SU burn mods would be wise. So for internships, I think everyone has a concern when they start out with nothing on their resume, but they'll be like, how do I even start? I have nothing on my resume. But don't worry, everyone starts out with nothing. Right? There's a rough ladder. Roughly speaking, there's a ladder that you can climb, and there's ways to skip each of these rounds also. Um, but this is a general way you can start to build up your resume over time. So the first round will be projects, right? Doing it yourself, to kind of showcase that you are enthusiastic to learn, about technologies and kind of build up your skills. Then from there, you can usually apply to startups. Sometimes you can skip the project stage and just go to a startup directly. For example, one option would be doing NOC in Southeast Asia in year 1 summer, and yeah, so so that's that. Then after startups, usually that's when big techs will stop rejecting your resume at the resume stage. And that's when you can do a big tech internship, and from there you can either try to get written offer there, or you can try to do, if you're interested, you can try to do HFTs. So for projects, I would say try to throw in some technologies that you know with some that you don't, right? With some that you're unfamiliar with, so they can actually learn from them instead of it just being a project for display. And it'd be nice to try to inculcate some system design elements, right? So things like scalability, things like that, will be nice to show your big tech interviewer that you care about these things, that you're learning about these things. A great chance to do a project would be Orbital, right, which happens in year 1 summer. There's a small application process, but generally most people do Orbital, and that'll be a good chance for you to do a project with a partner. And so there's also another. So for startups, NOC is definitely an option. NOC interview experience. The NOC interviews generally look for passion about startups, right? You can see NOC specific information up there. And for startups, NOC Southeast Asia, as I said earlier, is one way to do it in year 1 summer. So that's one way you can get that experience down in your resume. For if you want to do a non-NOC startup, then I would say that probably the best advice I can give is just try to cold email people who are doing startups. Sometimes if it's a small startup, when they see that you are enthusiastic about their product, they are naturally there is barely even an interview process, because not everyone comes around being interested in your product. So you can try to go for small startups, and then try to establish a personal connection with them. And so the interview format depends very, very widely, depending on the size of the startup and the culture. So there's not much specific advice I can give here, but in my opinion, this is the best chance to learn the most technology, because you can have ownership over like a small project that you can fully own and build from the ground up. And that's when you learn the most, as opposed to, let's say, being in a big tech where you contribute a small part to a big system already. So for big tech, I'll talk a bit about the various interview stages. Of course, I can go into greater detail, but generally there's a few stages. The exact number of stages depend on the company and the department even. But generally you upload your resume, and sometimes it's screened by AI or ATS, and sometimes it's also screened by HR. And but this is a stage where if you don't have a good resume, you might be rejected, and that's where having a startup in your resume might help. So after that, you'll be given an online assessment where you can grind, and the only way, I would say the best way to prepare for this is just to grind lead code. I don't think there's a way around this. I don't think it's a shortcut. Just grind lead code, prepare for online assessments, and try to get full marks for it. If you do well enough, sometimes the HR looks at your resume and you are invited for a technical interview. So technical interview, there's a few various themes. Sometimes it's system design, where you are told to design a scalable architecture for some website like eBay. Generally, knowing some operating system fundamentals will be important also, because it's part of CS Foundation, and a lot of your designs will revolve around how your operating system handles I/O, or like networking, or yeah, or like memory. So there's also another type of style of interview for technical interviews, which is lead code but live. So in that case, it's basically the same as the above, but you have to explain your thought process more clearly, and that's where they test your ability to kind of explain your code and explain your thought process and communication. A bit less common would be learning a new library on the spot, but there's some companies with such interviews where you have to learn. Basically, they're testing your ability to read documentation and kind of have independent work. And yeah, so lastly, there's some stage which is there's some firms have a stage where it's hiring manager or HR, where they kind of ask you questions, very standard questions like what's your biggest weakness. And I think the only you can study for those here, but one actionable thing you can do is to study the company itself, and why and prepare for the answer of why you want to join that company over other companies. Yeah, I won't really spend too much time on this, except to say that there's some language specific roles, and generally I'm quite passionate about C++. So if you want to learn more about how to tackle C++ interviews, you can feel free to hit me up. Yeah, so generally, I think the biggest thing that to summarize, I think um, the the biggest piece of advice I'll give is that if you're interested in NOC or SCP, please do take note of how it might clash with your year 3 summer internship where you try to get return offer, because that's something that I think most freshmen tend to overlook um, when they plan to go NOC. So they only realize it a bit too late, and then they have to delay their graduation. So try to plan with this in mind, and it doesn't hurt to plan ahead. And yeah, so I hope that this has given you a reasonable starting point to plan your NUS timetable. And do let me know if you have any further questions in the document by leaving a comment either in the YouTube section or in this Google Doc. Thank you.